Fox News alert millions of American families.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm George Thomas. We begin with the latest.
Here is a Johns Hopkins. There are certainly a lot of efforts here at the LAPD. All across the
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm George Thomas. We begin with the latest in the coronavirus pandemic. Number of cases here in the U.S.
And we are now live. With me, I have another Utah Patriot, Winston Smith. How you doing tonight?
All right, and yourself?
Oh, not too bad. It's been a long day, trying to start running for political office and trying to help the Utah Libertarian Party grow and everything. My plate's full with so many things, so it's never ending. So exactly, do we want to talk about House Bill 60 first, or?
Yeah, let's talk about House Bill 60 and how that went bad. Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to give a rundown to people watching what House Bill 60 was?
I wasn't really that impressed with HB 60 when it first started out. But I was people I've worked with in the background, a guy named Gopi who works for the who collects signatures for the Economic Coalition and probably heads at Utah Economic Coalition. And I've also worked with, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, Kristen Chevrolet, who's behind the YourHealthFreedom.com. I do believe they are a charity, and they work on vaccination issues. And she's very deep into what she calls health freedom, and I guess it is, which is vaccination. She's against all vaccinations, and ironically, when I first met her in March, I was not. My journey that I've been on for the past year, I've definitely changed my opinion about all vaccinations at this point. I still felt that the other ones were useful, maybe not as obsessed about them as some people can be, but I thought they were useful at least. Now listening to Robert Frederick Kennedy Jr.
Yeah.
I've come to understand, and I feel he has a very logical point when he points out the dangers that even regular vaccines bring. Circling back around to HB 60, though, the bill only was against COVID-19 in the beginning, and I made a complaint to Gopi. I'm like, this isn't good enough. He says, don't worry, because I have worries about future pandemics, if you will. And when I say pandemics, I mean the overhyped ones like this was.
No.
And by overhyped, I do know that COVID-19 is real. I had it 9 months ago in June. It definitely was a different virus compared to any other virus I have ever experienced. So I am not a COVID denier by any means. I do know that it's a real virus, and it tuckered me out for 14 days. Okay, I had much longer symptoms than my wife or my son had, who are much younger than me. Back to HB 60. So Gopi told me, no, this one's going to be good. It's gonna protect us for vaccine passports for all vaccines. And finally, Amendment 2 came out, and it was good. It was the bill that we needed, and it was supposed to protect employment also. As you know, so let's see. It was Monday at the beginning of March. I drove down to the Capitol to go into the committee hearing. When I got there, the committee chairman went through all the other bills first, every single non-important bill related to tax breaks for mines, tax breaks for this, all the little stuff that Republicans love to hand out, tax breaks, across the place, which really just more crony capitalism, if you ask me. But
yeah.
They say they're trying to help rural areas. Sure they are. But let's not get too deep into that.
Yeah.
At the very end, he dismissed the hearing, and there were over 100 people in the room. And he thought maybe by dismissing us that less of us would show up the next day. That didn't happen. The room was even more packed the next day, and then an overflow room was filling up also. Okay? And then the chairman, his name is Dan McKay, cocked an attitude from the very beginning, talking about how we were violating the dress code related to stickers. And there was a guy who had a sticker on. And I can give you the video if you'd like it, or you've probably already seen the video, haven't you?
I have. I actually shared that on my Telegram.
Yeah. The video was a man named Mike Brown being pulled out of the committee hearing, and Mike had an American flag hat on. He had a yes to HB 60 sticker, and he had a We the People shirt on. And they complained that he was violating, I'm assuming, the dress code. And don't get me wrong, in some of the Telegram groups that I run, I always tell people, go there in a button-up shirt, go in slacks, have dress shoes on, go and look like you're selling something, because we're selling something, okay? And as much as I don't like Dan McKay, I do think that we should show up like we're trying to sell something, These people, these ultra, I can't believe I'm saying this, ultra moderate, because that's what they are. Because they hug that little neoliberal border right there, if you will, right?
Yeah.
They hug it so tightly, you're not even sure what party they're in, besides the Uniparty, and quite frankly, they are the Uniparty. But he caught an attitude. He recessed. Mike Brown put the sticker away, and then they complained about his shirt. The next thing you know, he kept asking the Highway Patrol, hey, he's like, I did what he said. And the Highway Patrol wouldn't listen to him. Do I think that in the end he should have probably have gone? I probably would have held off at least once or twice. I would have done the same thing. By the third time, I probably would have just gone. And my advice for him is, by the third time, he probably should have gone.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have waited to get dragged out. And I know I'm going to make some people mad when I say that, but I think, yes, you should put up when tyranny's happening, you should put up the line. But
there's a time to fight, and then there's a time not to.
Right,
and
there's a time not to.
Yeah.
And I've had people come back to me on both sides and complain. To me, this bill was way too important. And I know there's a lot of conservatives and a lot of libertarians that disagree with me about this bill. They believe that this bill is an infringement on business rights. And here's what I have to say about that, okay? First, I'm going to go to the 9th Amendment, and the 9th Amendment gives rights to individuals, okay? In fact, it gives rights to individuals before it even gives rights to states. That amendment, the 9th Amendment, is then copied in the Utah Constitution under Article 1, Section 25, okay? It's almost word for word, verbatim, same thing, rights to individuals. Now, if someone can show me where there's rights to businesses, then fine, I'm willing to listen. But I, the individual, have the right first. And as Walter Brooks put it, he was the representative who was the sponsor of the bill from St. George, saint of a man, I'll say, pure, good human being. Even though he's a Republican, he's still solid. right? And I sent them a thank you note for the bill too, because these people that put themselves out like this, put themselves out against the establishment, get so very little things. To me, I look at the bill HB 60 as a upholding of my individual rights, because we've already seen the federal government try to push vaccine passports. Okay, we've seen the federal government try to make a move against our individual rights. And people can say that the businesses are doing what they want to, but we can't trust that when we've already seen all these vaccine mandates come down from the top. Okay, and come down from international organizations that don't appear to be doing things under egalitarian means.
I agree with that.
Right.
But so I am going to give just a little bit of pushback on that, because I'm the more libertarian leaning side. I'm radical free market. I believe that it is bad business practice for a business to separate the customers that could actually come in and spend money. The only pushback I really have about as far as the federal government telling businesses what they can and cannot do, this is them telling them what they cannot do. But that also opens the floodgates for the government telling them what they can do. Now, I think we live in a very, we have a fascist economy already. Like the big tech overlords are so meshed with our federal government already. I mean, it's hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. So I do have a problem with the government telling a business what they can and cannot do. However, I do believe that even if a business could discriminate against people like that, and I believe that to be morally wrong, we have every right to boycott them and to even protest that.
Right, and I might have agreed with you. I might have agreed with you 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 years ago. I might have agreed with you. But when there's such a top-down pressure, and not just top-down pressure, it's back to, like you mentioned, big tech, okay? Lately there's the big tech or social media, if you will, because I'm going to go ahead and throw Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook into this, even YouTube, and into this one big merged organization. Okay.
The digital public square.
Right. When you have this, social media has become a form of brainwashing. Okay. And what I mean by that is what they try to do is create a moral panic. And with that, we've seen some of the, even though I didn't like Tucker Carlson, if you would ask me 3 years ago what my opinion of Tucker Carlson, I would have said he's a conservative blowhard, Ironically, lately, I've been agreeing with him almost 90% of the time now. And that's largely because of the COVID-19 tyranny. When you have this aspect where you have conversations with people and they can't handle what you're saying, it's not like 3 years ago. The compulsion that social media creates, where they want to deny simple truths, it's pretty bad. So I would say yes, I would agree. But the deal is, if all businesses are saying you must get the vaccine, then it's not really the free marketplace anymore. When we see and back to what you said, fascism. You did say fascism, right? Did you say that?
Oh yeah, economic fascism.
Right. So to me, there's already been a complete merge between the government and big tech, if you will.
Yeah.
And the minute I noticed that happening was back to before we went online. That what I've noticed was the minute they started pushing the COVID narrative, that was the fusion, if you will. Okay. the fusion where there was no more line between the government. In fact, big tech was the government at that point forward. I'm not even, I was just on Twitter just a second ago, and you wouldn't believe what Twitter put out. They are literally telling me that even though Joe Biden said that there's a new world order, they're telling me that it's not that new world order. No, that's not the new world order. What? If you have to tell me that, then it's really hard to believe you. That you have to go out of your way.
Let me guess. Hunter Biden's laptop also doesn't exist.
Yeah. I think everybody knows. But the point is, what was on the laptop and what they tried to prevent from getting out to the news across the board.
Yeah, intentionally. And I agree with you. See, my whole protest is just, well, I'm just not pro-government at all. And so I just believe that we, the citizens, have way more capability of actually knocking a lot of these institutions and businesses out who do propose these things. Right. I just don't think government is the solution. I think that's the only difference where I disagree.
And I'm associated with many people who would agree with your point of view. I'm associated with a lot of libertarians and even people who would call themselves anarchists. And when I mean anarchists, not the kind that throw bricks at Starbucks, but the kind that volunteer.
Those aren't anarchists.
Right.
Right.
I said that more in a joking
yeah,
fashion.
Yeah, of course.
We both know that they're some kind of neo-Marxists.
Those are peaceful protesters.
Right. I don't even know what they think they know what they're against. And I don't even think they know what their true utopia would be, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right? That's truly, I hear a lot of great ideas. And there's a guy, his name is Baji. I'm going to kill his name, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. He's Indian. I believe he was the CTO of Coinbase. And he discusses things called the network state. Okay. And it's where you opt into a country to represent you instead of the nation states that we have today. I think it's a wonderful idea, but the problem is we have a competing, world unifying philosophy. And that organization is a very big organization with a bunch of sub-organizations, and they're all non-governmental organizations perpetrating like they're charities, okay? And that organization is the World Economic Forum, headed by Klaus Schwab. And some of those...
A Bond villain.
Yes. And there's sub-organizations underneath that, or ones that were the top dog maybe 60 years ago, like the Rockefeller Foundation, to which I've been aware of since I was very young. Wherever you see the Rockefeller's fingerprints, no good can come of it. The Rockefeller Foundation in their sub-organizations, because they have sub-organizations like the Council on Foreign Affairs, the Trilateral Commission, and it goes on. And, we've got the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Club of Rome, the Bilderberg Group. You can go on. But the difference between that and the World Economic Forum is the World Economic Forum, they don't hide anything that they're doing. They're not some secret organization. They post exactly what they're going to do and how they want to carry it out. And it all sounds like rainbows, cotton candy, and puppies, okay? But I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah.
Okay? Anything that you can't opt out of, and by the way, another bill that we had a big problem with, I can't remember, was it SB 80? So one of the bills that I did help stop, which was the SB 88, the Digital Driver's License Project, which was completely voluntary. It's completely voluntary.
Yeah, just like Real ID.
Right. No. Except for the problem is it's not. You can go to Digital ID 2020 or ID2020.com. And guess who is a member of that? The Rockefeller Foundation. And they promote You can go to the UN's sustainability website and download the digital driver's license documents. Okay, I have links to all of it. So to say that these it's voluntary is a load of crap. It's in their goals. It's been in their goals, and it's an admitted goal. They want further centralization. And if there's anything that you and I will both agree on, is that decentralization creates the marketplace of ideas. I mean, back to what I was discussing before, the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment is we've got 50 states. We're supposed to have 50 marketplaces of ideas, so that if you don't like one, you can opt out by moving to another one.
Yeah.
And that the encroaching federalization and the giant-sized federal government that we have, we'll both agree that that's overly massive, overly bankrupt.
Yes.
And I mean, I worried about the U.S. the U.S. debt when it was at $5 trillion under George Bush.
I was just talking about that today. Yeah.
Yeah. It's now 30 trillion. And I mean, I'm assuming you own some Bitcoin. I know I own some Bitcoin.
Well, Monero.
Oh, Monero. Okay.
Yeah.
I own several cryptocurrencies, just like most of us who are worried about these economic conditions own several cryptocurrencies, because there's nowhere, I mean, there's a reason why they're calling this the Great Reset. There's nowhere that this debt crisis, and the debt crisis isn't just an American debt crisis, it's a debt crisis around the world. The European Union. I mean, I was not a Bitcoin proponent until I would say a couple months into the pandemic, from March to May. I started to look at currency pairs across Latin America, and I noticed how much all of them had decayed against the dollar by almost 50% over the past couple of years. And I'm like, these people are having an economic crisis. There are some countries that were worse. Argentina was much worse than, say, Colombia. But across the board, most of the countries were down at least 50% against the dollar. So this is what worries me about this Great Reset. The Great Reset that Klaus Schwab says needs to happen is that it is going to be an actual change of money. And by change of money, instead of using paper dollars or those paper dollars that are actually digital dollars, I'm sure you've seen in the news over and over again about CBDC, central bank digital currencies, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
And tell me, what's your thoughts on that?
I would have two main thoughts. An actual central or a digital central banking currency is just going to be basically just what we have now, but there's just not going to be any paper money left or any coins left. I don't believe that it's the idea of that is actually going to manifest. Now, the reason why I say that is because they already have the ability to control the main cryptocurrencies. If you watch and see what happened in Canada, after GoFundMe and GiveSendGo got blocked by the Canadian government, so did the Bitcoin addresses. So the fact that they can, based upon your beliefs or what you say, what you do, or even what you don't do, they can just blacklist your address. And then what are you going to do? You can't send anything anywhere. So
one of my worries about Bitcoin that I work in tech. One of my worries about Bitcoin that I expressed to one of my Bitcoin millionaire friends was not so much the addresses, was what if they decided to block the Bitcoin ports across the board?
Well, not to mention it's a completely public ledger. Everyone can
Right.
see everything.
Right. But I don't think Bitcoin was ever. It was never purported. I mean, people got confused, and I think they thought that it was a privacy coin of sorts, right?
Yeah.
But it was never meant to. It was, yes, it was always advertised this as a public ledger.
Yeah.
It was never meant to be, even though people have laundered money with it. But people, I mean, let's face it, what's the biggest money laundering currency in the world?
The U.S.
The
dollar.
US dollar.
The
Right?
Federal Reserve notes. I mean, just to say that any cryptocurrency is bad because criminals use it, it's like, well, politicians all the way down to street level criminals use U.S. dollars too. So should we just get rid of that because of criminals use it? Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But I mean, I guess that's where their goal. The problem with the CBDCs, or at least how it's been advertised to me, and this is by people like Majid Nawaz and others, is that the CBDC is going to be tied in with your social credit score. And people can't call that a conspiracy because it's already in action in China. Okay. And your social credit score, you don't know where you're going to be losing points. You don't know where you're going to be gaining points, and you really have no way to check into it or dispute it. But, the CBDCs will probably be tied in to a social credit score. So if you've already got your allotment of hamburgers that month, well, you're not going to get to go buy any more In and Out at that point.
Well, yeah, and if you say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing, have the wrong friends, then your score is going to drop. You won't be able to buy anything,
Right.
and that's why I'm a proponent of Monero. Period.
Right.
And there are other privacy coins, but Monero's king.
I do. I did mine some Monero last summer. One thing I like about it is I like that it does CPU mining, and that makes it, I think, more democratic. I'm saying this in a good way, not a bad way. More democratic as in more people can get into it, right?
Yeah.
When you have mining that has to be done on ASIC chips or graphic cards, then not everyone can get it. Like I created a VM on my workstation at home and mined Monero, right? So,
yeah, I mean, anyone can do it, and the more people that actually do it, the more secure and decentralized the network becomes.
Yeah. Having said that, I'm sure you're aware that El Salvador has started using Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency.
Yeah. As a legal tender, yeah.
And I'm very excited about some of the things their president has to say, because he's pointed out weeks ago, he said the war's not in the Ukraine, the war is in Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Germany, and the UK. So he's already pointing out, as we saw, what happened in Canada, why the Freedom Trucker Convoy was going on, which was the Canadians have been abused for the past 2 years. And it took truckers to get them to stand up to it. And ironically, this whole Russia invasion took right over as soon as the crackdown on the truck drivers in Canada happened. And it was a crackdown. I mean, the way I look at it, that was Canada's Tiananmen Square, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people didn't, get ran over with tanks, but it's one of the closest modern parallels, I would say.
Right, you're right. They didn't get ran over by tanks.
Lady got trampled by a horse, though.
A lady on a what was it like? It wasn't even. It was like some kind of a wheelchair, wasn't it? It wasn't like they kept saying.
It was something to be able to help assist her walk, not necessarily a walker or something, but yeah, she wasn't freely mobile, but nonetheless got trampled by a police officer an authoritarian on a horse. So
Right. And one thing that I've had a real problems with, and I don't know if you've seen the same thing I have, but those countries I just previously mentioned, I've seen police beating protesters over and over and over again for the past 2 years. So for me, it's really hard to be the thin blue line when you see that police are being used actively against the people, not to uphold the law, but in contradiction of the law, if you will. Because nothing that's happened in the last 2 years has anything to do with the law. These are not laws. These mandates or these edicts or whatever they want to call them, they were never passed by councils or parliaments or Congress or any such lawmaking act. But they're being enforced as if they are, and the police don't even question it in many countries, and that's what was so scary about what happened at the HB 60 committee hearing. Was the police, they turned into robots like that, and I had a conservative get displeased with me saying, "Oh, that guy should have listened to the police. It's like George Floyd, he didn't follow." And I'm sorry, I don't see this requirement or something I signed up to that says that I'm going to do everything the police says. Okay, I've never. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that. There's nothing. I don't know of anywhere where I've made that agreement. Just like the guy Mike Brown who got pulled out, it was obvious. It's one thing when police make mistakes because they feel someone is armed. Okay. It was obvious that Mike Brown was not armed. And the fact that they brought 3 officers up to him, okay, come on. Were they really that scared? Because I'm telling you, he's not a very threatening looking guy, okay? It was to show force and to show force to those of us that were in support of the bill. And I never did finish that part of the conversation. As they pulled him out, HB 60 then got an additional amendment, and I don't remember the specifics of it, but it took the bite out of the bill and watered it down. And in the end, it never made it to the Senate. It got passed with that by the committee and never made it to the Senate. And I'm not sure how that's even necessarily legal. If the House voted on it and it made it to the Senate subcommittee, then they should have had to vote on it. But I'm not sure of what the specific constitutional requirements of the Utah Senate are. I will say this much: I'm not impressed with what I've seen. For Utah being such a conservative state, its Republicans are not that conservative. Let me rephrase that. Its Republican representatives are not that conservative. There's not much that comes out of that legislature that I would call conservative. This is pretty much are you Utah native?
Yeah, born and raised.
Okay. I'm not. I've spent a lot of my time working overseas, I moved here for the skiing and paragliding. Don't do so much of the paragliding so much. But for a place that purports that it's so conservative, it's really a one-issue state when it breaks down to it, if you know what I mean. And that's the one question for you and your run for office. You, like me, probably have the same opinion about abortion. And what I mean by that is, as it may be something that you wouldn't personally do yourself, you believe people should probably have a reasonable access to it, correct?
So what I believe morally and what I believe legislatively are two different things. And that's most of my stances. I can't project my morals upon somebody else. Once again, my main thought on almost anything is, should the government itself be involved? And no, it shouldn't. I don't believe abortion is a political issue. I believe it to be a philosophical, moral, and medical issue. I would like to see the government out of the medical field in a very large aspect. And on top of that, I believe that banning them is not going to get rid of them. So what do we do with that? Because banning doesn't do anything. I mean, we should just ban murder, right? Banning doesn't work. It just creates a black market for it. That's all it does. I find it morally reprehensible, but that's also for everyone else to decide for them, for their own life. So I don't have the right to tell somebody else how to live.
And that's about my position also. I'm probably a little bit more specific on that, which is I do believe there's probably a time cutoff limit there. You know, if a fetus can survive outside the womb, then there probably should be that's the cutoff to when somebody should probably not have one. But having said that, I don't. It's like you said, they're still going to happen, but they're going to happen in a dirty, nasty way, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I've lived in third world countries, and in those third world countries that were very Catholic, I've seen what happens to actual children when there is not access to abortion, and that is people go and they buy something from the pharmacy to take, and then if that abortion doesn't work, then the child's born brain damaged, you know, or whatever physical ailment. And that's a horrible thing to see, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot in the developing world, where there's not the sex education or anything like that. People are very unaware of the consequences related to sexual actions, if you know what I'm saying. So,
I definitely agree with that. It's the first line of defense, because I personally believe in personal responsibility to an extreme. You not you necessarily, but you in the abstract. If somebody decides to lay on their back or however, and perform the one act that we all know creates children, you're taking that risk into your own hands. And there's a consequence to that action, and sometimes that results in a child. And I don't think you should necessarily be able to escape that. So, but that's also my moral belief. I once again, I just don't think the government should have a place in it. It should be left up to the philosophers and doctors and the individual person.
and I'm like I said, I mostly agree with that.
Yeah.
To me, it definitely is a bodily autonomy issue, and I mean, to me, that's back where I am with the vaccine.
Yeah.
If we can even call them vaccines, because vaccines do something.
Experimental drug is more accurate.
Right. Vaccines stop diseases and the spread of them.
Yeah.
Nothing that the Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca experimental gene therapies do, which we can actually call a vaccine. So it's a misnomer to even use that phrase, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely it's hard to even call them medication, if you will. I mean, I'm sure you've heard that the Pfizer side effects have finally gotten released, even though they tried to have the FDA.
Some of them have, yeah. It's like the first. I think it was 30,000 pages, and there's more to come.
There's more to come.
So
they're dragging their foot as hard as they can.
Yeah.
I found it ironic when the we're in the age of moral panics, and these moral panics The first moral panic in the last 2 years, of course, was the you must lock down. And then the next moral panic was you must wear a mask. And then the next moral panic was you must get the vaccine. And then the next moral panic was you must absolutely support the Ukraine. There's a lot of stuff behind that whole story that prevents me from supporting the Ukraine. The first part goes like this, and that is John McCain in 2014 went over to the Ukraine and encouraged them to riot and overthrow their properly elected government that was Russian friendly and not EU, NATO, or US friendly.
Yeah.
Okay? And when that happened, okay, what happened? Then there was a referendum to which we were lied about. There was a referendum in Crimea where 95% of them voted to be part of Russia. But yet we were told there was a Russian invasion of Crimea. So the story out of the Ukraine keeps getting funnier. And then lately, we've had the Secretary of State say there's 25 different biolabs over there. That's a heck of a lot of biolabs. And yet they're all experimenting with diseases that are similar to COVID-19 or worse, right? Why? I'd be worried if a country has one biolab, but now that I hear that there's 25 of them, that makes me even more worried. But what makes me even more worried is that when we're told it's a conspiracy theory, even though the Secretary of State states that they are there. And by the way, there was a link on the Department of State website talking about these biolabs too. So we've been gaslit by the media once again. But it's back to what I was saying, the moral panic. And when we experience these moral panics where you're not allowed to say anything in contradiction of what the moral panic is, which takes away our freedom of speech. When there was a bit on The View the other day where they mentioned that they thought Tulsi Gabbard should be put away because she stated information that they considered to be pro-Russian. Furthering.
Yeah, I saw that. Mitt Romney.
Yeah.
Piece of trash.
Romney's pretty bad, and I knew Romney was bad. One thing, I liked Ron Paul, and when I saw Ron Paul in 2008 debate against Romney and McCain, and even though he was more, I would say, more pure libertarian than I am, at least what he said was true, and he was honest. Okay, and you could get a good feel for him, right? You don't have to agree with everyone to know at least this is a good person, right?
Yeah.
In that same 2008 debate, Romney got up there, and I, being a veteran, okay, and being a veteran that agrees that we need to follow the Geneva Convention that we agreed with, Romney got up there and then said that we should use waterboarding for enhanced interrogation. And this is the one time that I probably agreed with McCain when McCain told him that's not the way we do things in America. And you just heard I disagreed with something that McCain did in the future from that time period. But at least he was right. Romney, he even admitted when he was running in 2012, once he won the Republican delegates, he admitted that his opinions changed like the wind. What his opinion today is will not be his opinion tomorrow. And that's the one thing I have a big problem with a lot of the uniparty politicians is if you're going to say something, stick to it. Okay, even if I don't like it, but when you're like Romney, where he's pretty much voted against every single thing. He's voted against almost every single thing that would be considered good, and voted for example, he voted for to keep the kids in masks with the Head Start mask mandate, right? He voted to keep Dr. Fauci in his position and not split the position up. He's voted for that. I believe he voted for that infrastructure bill, which there's nothing what I would consider. How can I put it? That infrastructure bill is a pork barrel bill if there ever was one, and I'm sure you'd agree with that. There's nothing about that's taking care of people in any way, shape, or form. All it was a way to throw cash at their favorite private organizations, if you will. Right?
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that infrastructure bill at all?
I mean, I have thoughts. I never read the bill itself. Anytime government says anything that they're going to do, I know it's just going to be a flop and a waste of money. I mean, there's things they did 50 years ago that I want to repeal. I would like to abolish the Department of Education. So I don't think anything new that this very criminal organization, because these people are criminals. They're war criminals, human rights violators. Anything that they're proposing, I don't see any good. I don't see any good.
You know, when Gary Johnson said that in 2016, I was like, what? He's nuts. And then I went to go look. I was like, wait, this has only been around since the 1970s?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Isn't the Department of Education the one that does all the stuff with the student loans that's getting everybody in debt anyways?
Partially.
You know that student loans are a problem. So why do we keep giving out something that's a problem? It doesn't make sense. We're just feeding the problem. It's probably, I think the states were carrying on fine with education. In fact, to be honest, I think actually students' scores were actually higher before we had the Department of Education. So it's really been an agency that's taken us backwards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's my stance is really like the infrastructure bill. I do agree that we do need to invest money and time and effort into rebuilding a lot of our infrastructure, including nuclear power plants, because I'm pro-nuclear. Nuclear. So, there's it's definitely something that needs to happen. I just, once again, don't think the government should do it. I don't trust a bunch of people who can't even be honest with us, and a bunch of people who can't even balance a checkbook. I don't trust them with my money. What's left of it, anyways.
Well, let's face it. They're not even using our money. They're using inflation.
It's borrowing from the future. So, my kids, my grandkids, same, like your future family, like it's just, it's not our money anymore. It's all credit.
Yeah, it's all credit.
Yeah, and it's really scary. It's really disappointing. And like I said, I just don't trust them. I've seen what they've done, and what they've done is turn around and not benefited us in any reasonable manner. There's been a few here and there. It's definitely not drawn along party lines, in my opinion. But anyone who actually goes to Washington and tries to do anything gets shut down. They make it so difficult to, even starting my campaign, that the one thing I've learned is the barrier to entry is absolutely ridiculous, even just on a local level. And so at the federal level, good luck. It's like George Carlin said, it's a big club and we ain't in it.
Well, we ain't in it, that's for sure. So tell me about your barrier to entry.
Well, one of the most frustrating things is the financial reporting. So they definitely don't make it easy. campaign financing. I understand why it needs to be done. It's one of the few things I do agree with. Having all of that be public record. Once again, I think we could find a non-government solution to be able to do the same thing. But campaign financing and the reporting of that, I totally agree with. It should be transparent. It's been very difficult. So Utah puts out a candidate manual, and they basically give you steps 1, 2, and 3, everything, how to do everything. But that manual contradicts what's said in the Utah code. Nothing's clearly explained. It's different language than what's in the Utah code. They don't give you examples of the Utah code. So when you're referencing them back and forth, it's incredibly confusing and incredibly difficult. To be able to run an effective campaign, even on a state level, you have to at least raise so much money. Otherwise, you're not even taken seriously by the public. Which, okay, fine. I guess I understand. I do think it's wrong. However, I can get past that. Being able to have just the average person jump into the political boxing ring, so to speak, is just one of the most difficult things. It's honestly one of the most stressful things I think I've actually ever done. Anyone who starts down this road, I see why not too many new people get involved. It's really, really difficult.
I do agree there's a true barrier to entry, a barrier to entry that keeps what I call influence peddlers in place and real people from joining in the mix, if you will. And to me, that is, I believe politics is supposed to work so that everybody gets a chance, not so that we keep having the same stench running for office over and over again. And I will say this: the one thing I do like about at least Utah's disclosure laws is, I don't know if I mentioned this part, but I like to talk about it a lot. I went through Dan McKay's donations after he chaired such a very poor committee hearing, and I did find that he took $500 from Pfizer PAC. Amazing how he was able to say that this was about business property rights. And you know, I've had people from both sides retort to me, "Oh, it's just $500. $500 is convenient enough." I would have given him much more than that for him to side with the people. I would have given. I don't know if that's something that we can do where me and Pfizer can go toe to toe with how we bid this out, because I'd much prefer that. I prefer that, you know, me and Pfizer get out there. They offer 500, I offer 600, they offer 700. But let's keep going. Let's make it a public thing. At least I can get out there and I can bid. You know.
You know, I'm to the point where I think all government programs and even campaigns should be like GoFundMe campaigns. Let the people decide what politician gets funded, and let it all be transparent.
Right.
But that would never happen.
I floated that idea myself. I'm like, why do we even need politicians? People know what they want. If they like the Department of Defense so much, then when it comes to their taxes, they should mark on it, I want it all to go to the DOD, or I want it to go to the national parks or whatever, you know. Then we can get rid of politicians altogether. You know, everybody pays their flat tax, and then the money goes to the things that are important. We don't need the politicians there. And then we know that we don't spend any more than that money, if you will.
Yeah.
You know? That's back to that concept I was talking about, the nation state, the network state concept, you know, where you opt into the things that you like and you opt out of the things that you don't like.
Yeah, and I'm definitely a proponent of that as well. I think it could work very well in many different areas, especially education.
My big problem with the network state concept is there is an agenda, and that agenda plans to be accomplished by 2030. You can agree you can agree that it exists or doesn't exist, but they've said it numerous times. Numerous organizations, World Economic Forum, the UN, whoever, they've all say this is their drop dead date to when they want to have their plans. Call it whatever you want to, New World Order, whatever. They want it done by this time period. And so my only hope is that we create the opt-in state, if you will, by the time that we want to opt out of the CBDCs, the social credit score, and all of that similar stuff. Because I have a feeling we're not going to like how that turns out.
Well, and I think there is a way to opt out of it. There's definitely, agorism is definitely a favorite philosophy of mine. Creating counter economies, working outside of these systems. It's hard to beat this system when you play their game. So just don't play their game. Build your own game.
I do agree. Even 2 years ago, before COVID stopped, the thought that kept echoing in my head was, if we keep using their money, they win. And that was even before I became a Bitcoin proponent. It kept echoing in my head, that thought, over and over again. Yeah. We have to trade with each other. But the problem is, a lot of us, for agorism to work, you have to have your skills, your trades, and products that you make. And most of us have been employees in a workplace for a large part of our lifetime.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I've tried a few enterprising ideas, plans, maybe unlike my brother who has made $1 million when they were side handles. So you sometimes, to make a business work, you got to put your all into it. And when you put your all into it, well, what happens? You're either going to succeed and do real well, or you're going to flop, right? And when it's just a side handle, well, it's okay if it flops. But I think agorism is, it's back to the thought that you have to have a trade, you have to create a product. If you're not creating a product, then it's hard to make it come true, if you will, right?
And I agree. The one pushback I would have on that is that my labor is my product.
Right.
So I think, you build it and they will come.
Right.
And I think it's definitely not an easy plan, because everything's so entrenched, and it's so, well, it's just that it's so entrenched, and it's become such a part of daily life that, the idea of agorism definitely is not easy, and it's not going to be an easily won battle to say. But it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I do agree. There's a thing called the Greater Reset, and there's some guys named Derek Rose and John Bush, and they're both good people. I went to Derek Rose's event when he was while he was here in Utah, and I do believe their heart's in the right place. But like most things related to true anarchism and true volunteerism, it's so much of it is untested in ways, because the way I look at it is, we've had so many phases of government, right? We've never had the true phase of not having government, and it takes work to build that out for us to truly cooperate amongst each other voluntarily.
Yeah.
You know, I do believe in the crypto space there are a lot of crypto projects that are going to help that, so that we can create trust systems between each other, where we had government in that place before, right? You know, I do think that'll be some of the benefits from smart contracts. You know, is that we'll have a more, and then you can say to me, well, what's the difference between that and a social credit score? And my retort to that will be, well, the social credit score is not voluntary, and you know, things like a Cardano or Ethereum smart contract is an opt-in concept, if you will, right?
Yeah.
You know, but I do believe that if cryptocurrency is allowed to, don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of crap projects out there when it comes to cryptocurrency.
Lots.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's lots, and you know, many projects are ignorable, if you will, right? You know, if you can see that the project starts out in some 0.00000018, you know, cents or whatever, then you can tell it's probably a crap project, right?
Yeah.
You know, but when it comes to cryptocurrency, I think it's kind of the same things as stocks, which is who's the founder? Has the founder been involved in other projects before? I think that's the question number one.
And who are they beholden to?
Right.
Yeah.
I think the next question to ask is, does the project create jobs? Like Chainlink, for example. Chainlink creates jobs. You know, you can go to Chainlink Labs and you can see there's hundreds of jobs created around the world by Chainlink. Okay, so that's another question to ask yourself about a project. Two, does the project have a working product, and can you enter that product and use it? You know, if it doesn't, other than the 0.00000018, you know, cent coin, then no, it's probably something you should ignore, if you will.
Yeah.
Right? You know, like for example, Polkadot. I put a little bit of money into Polkadot recently because it met all of those criteria.
Yeah.
That's not to say that you know, I still think, and this is where I'm going to agree with you. I believe that there should be like a Moody's, like there is for bonds. You know, bonds get ratings, if you will, corporate bonds or country bonds. I believe there should be like a Moody's for crypto. And
Yeah.
I don't know if one's been created or not, but it definitely, you know, where each coin is, you know, hey, this gets an F, you know, this Aqua Aquarius coin gets an F grade, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of the communities, you know, end up taking care of a lot of that, but we're still at the very beginning when it comes to crypto. You know, this is in the grand scheme of things, this is still a very, very new technology that we're still trying to figure out.
Right. And one of my things is like, I don't like XRP because XRP is a centralized project, right?
Yeah.
To me, I think the whole point of
Same with Tether.
Right. I think the whole point of crypto is, you know, you're taking a societal, economic, or social problem, and you're trying to decentralize it. So if it's a centralized product, then it's not really making what the whole purpose of crypto is in the first place, if you will, right?
Exactly.
Which is, you know, there's a lot of times what people, when they're mining crypto, they're mining Bitcoin. What they don't understand is they're mining of Bitcoin that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is they're providing infrastructure for Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Yeah.
What they're getting paid for project, they're getting paid in Bitcoin for providing the infrastructure, if you will.
Yeah.
Helium is another one. I bought a helium miner. I haven't put it up yet, but helium's another one that's trying to, and when I say this, I don't mean Democrat or, you know, it's trying to democratize the internet so that there's internet access that isn't through main providers all the time, right? because we still have that issue with the internet. Is great, fine. Let's say you split it all up with who's providing services, but the access is still centralized, and we need true decentralized access to the internet, if you will. Right?
Yeah, most definitely. That's definitely one of the scariest things, is because your ISP could just one day just decide to stop working with you.
Right. You surf the wrong thing, or your social credit score is just not high enough for you to be able to have internet access anymore.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why I think projects like that are important, and I hope that the technology will catch up to provide us decentralized internet access.
I agree. Well, I think we're going to wrap up here. Honestly, it was a great conversation, and I want to get you back on, because there's a lot of things happening in Utah and also around the world. I feel like we have good interactions, and you run a really great Telegram page. Do you want to plug that real quick, or anything else you got going?
Well, I'm quite disappointed with the Rally for Freedom, but I understand what happened. So our latest rally just didn't take off real well, and I think people are suffering from rally burnout right now. So I'm not going to be plugging it as hard as I did in the past, where I was hitting you up on time. Hey man, can you sling this flyer for me? Can you sling this flyer? There's so many rallies going on, and so many people inside that rally have become delegates in the Republican Party. And as I'm not a fan of the Republican Party, I'm a fan of individuals, and I do support those individuals who became delegates, right?
Yeah.
And I just support some of those people who are actually running too. Elena Erickson, she's an anti-Great Resetter, and so I support individuals. I reach beyond any party line. If I know someone's a good person, then I want them to run. I do believe that I'm going to have a new concept coming up soon here, and that is the. I do believe that privacy is at stake right now, and I'm going to start working on privacy technologies to try to get people access to privacy technologies, so that their footprint out on the greater internet is decreased, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'll come on to talk about that in the future.
Absolutely, anytime. So yeah, we'll
some good interaction here, and definitely hit some important topics of what's going on around Utah and the world.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I had a great time, and we'll definitely get you back on. So everyone watching, make sure and go to risetoliberty.com/links. That's where you can find us everywhere on the internet, pretty much every place that we are. There's a few places not listed, but it's just we're not active. They're mainly backups for when a lot of these other platforms end up going down at some point for having these conversations. And other than that, we stream every Sunday, every Monday, and sometimes during the week. Just keep an eye on YouTube, Rumble, and DLive.tv. And you can find us pretty much anywhere at Rise to Liberty or Rise to Liberty podcast. And I want to thank you once again, Winston, for coming on, and I'll see you on the internet.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Later.